I'm ready. I'm talking. I'm paying attention to the road.
Do you think you're able to do it?
I did this safely, ladies and gentlemen. I got everything set up at the rest area. We hit record there. I have the mic all set up. I'm just driving. And yeah, we're going to record the podcast on the road today.
Yes, it's the On the Road episode of Aaron and Justin Talk Sequels. I'm Justin.
I am Aaron.
And today we're talking the Evil Dead franchise from Mastermind Sam Raimi.
I give Bruce Campbell credit as well. I feel like they went at it together.
It feels like it's Campbell, Raimi, and then Tappert.
Tappert, yes, Robert Tappert.
And boy, oh boy, these movies they're an interesting watch. What is your experience with these movies? What do you remember of them?
Maybe around graduation, maybe like late 90s, when I think is around the time I actually saw Army of Darkness. And I remember thinking it was pretty funny. And then I went to film school, which was in the Detroit area. So, of course, whenever they would have a guest speaker, it would be like a Detroit native, person that was known in the films. So Tom Sullivan, who was a special effects guy, came to speak to all of us. Yeah. And he brought all the props from the original Evil Dead. And at that point, they were only like 15 years old, but still all that latex and stuff starts to fall apart. So I bet they're like all gone now, but they were in pretty good condition at that point. And like he had the foot, that got stabbed by the pencil and all kinds of fun stuff. So that was really, and he just spoke about doing special effects for Evil Dead. So, and I think when I was in film school, that's when I actually like really sat down and watched Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, and then I got the whole experience. So then when I heard about the Ash versus Evil Dead show, I was like right there for it. I made sure I subscribed to the Stars, package for 7 days, and then watched all 10 episodes of the first season, in 7 days, and then canceled it. And now it's on Netflix, so I was able to check out the whole thing.
Are you kidding? It's on Netflix?
I believe it is on Netflix, yeah.
I just went and bought the series off of iTunes.
You stupid bastard. No. You know what? You're supporting Bruce Campbell, Sam Raimi, and Robert Tappert, and that is an okay thing to do. But I'm pretty sure all 3 seasons are on Netflix. If it still is, I'm not sure, but last I checked, yeah. That's funny. Yeah. But, it'll go away someday, but you'll now have it forever, or at least until the digital apocalypse, when all of the servers get wiped someday. And you lose everything we own, because we own nothing but ones and zeros.
I look forward to that time, yeah. These films comprise the original Evil Dead, Evil Dead Part 2, and then we have Army of Darkness.
Yep.
And then they did a soft reboot in 2013 with another film simply titled Evil Dead.
Yep.
So, first movie. We could almost talk about all these movies because the plots are pretty close together.
It's kind of like there's 2 movies. You know what I mean? There's the first 2 and then Army of Darkness, and that's the storyline, like 2 films. But there happen to be 2 versions of the first movie, I guess I would say.
Well, it's a really good point, because the way that Raimi does his recaps at the beginning of each movie, they're almost like a previously on the Evil Dead.
Yeah, right.
And he uses that chance to change the details that he wants. Like with Evil Dead Part 2, I actually timed it out. It was exactly 7 minutes until they got to the final scene in the first movie. And it was less him erasing the first movie, but more him just omitting his 3 friends.
Yeah.
And just giving you a quick recap of that. And then same with Army of Darkness. He takes the first 5 minutes to recap it. And both times he makes changes to the storyline to just better suit that movie. And it's interesting to me. I don't think I've seen a lot of movies be as loose with their continuity as this series.
Yeah, not intentionally, I think, within a short time span as he is. Like, you could say the only one that comes to mind is the X-Men franchise. But I feel like they made
Yes.
changes just because they had to and they tried to improve on what they were doing. And over the course of 20 years of making movies, they just messed everything up and they had to find ways to fix it. And but with Raimi, it's kind of like I got more money and I want to take it in a new direction. So now this is the way it's going to go.
The only person that came a little close for me was when we talked about Robert Rodriguez,
Yeah.
and just the way that he would recast actors into different roles that were killed off previously. You know what? Like, those two have a nice through line just because it seems like Sam Raimi has a ton of fun when he makes movies.
Yeah, I would say so.
So Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell and Robert,
Tapper.
what was it? Robert Tappert, all Michigan natives.
Yeah.
I didn't double check Tappert, but it looked like they all grew up in Royal Oak.
Yep, pretty much the Detroit, Metro Detroit area. And I know that Bruce and Sam went to Michigan State, and I think that's how they became like film friends.
Well, that was funny to me because Bruce Campbell is listed as graduating from Western.
Oh, really? Okay.
They all, the story goes that they grew up together and that they did short films together and they made an initial movie.
Well, they made one called Within the Woods,
Yes.
which was to try to raise money to make Evil Dead.
Yeah, it totally worked. And then they made The Evil Dead. And this is such an interesting story of luck. Like, this is the luck that every aspiring filmmaker needs, and it happens so little the way that it did for Raimi. Oh, who was the producer that signed on after part one?
Well, it was Dino De Laurentiis is the one that helped him make Evil Dead 2, I believe.
Yeah, De Laurentiis was the financier.
And he was big time, you know. I mean, he made a lot of stuff. He worked with David Lynch, like he helped him get his start, and you know, he made Flash, you know, and Barbarella. So he was making movies since like the '60s. Well, with Evil Dead, you know, they raised money throughout the Detroit area, like 300,000 or something like that. They wanted to shoot it in Michigan, but they ended up shooting it in Tennessee, I believe. And it was a very rough shoot. Everybody lived at the actual cabin that they shot the movie, but they got it done. And him and a young Joel Cohen, I believe, from the Coen brothers, helped him edit Evil Dead. And Stephen King ended up seeing a cut of the film at some sort of festival or something like that. And I think that's where the dumb luck that you talked about comes in, because Stephen King was like, this movie is awesome. And that's really all you needed back in 1980, 81, was for Stephen King to give it his thumbs up approval to a horror movie. And they could just go gangbusters with promoting it that way.
And that's the name I was looking for. Irvin Shapiro, a famous producer, liked the film. And so he got the film shown at Cannes. And that's where Stephen King was watching movies, loved the movie. And Stephen King was directing Maximum Overdrive?
Yes, right. Maximum Overdrive. Have you ever seen that?
Which was... No, I've never have. I hear it's good.
It's horrible.
Is it horrible?
It's awful. I mean, it's played. I mean, really, it's. I think he was trying to do like his best Sam Raimi, but he's just not. He's an amazing horror writer, but he is not a good director. And it was just. I think it's like a cult film. A lot of people love it. I mean, like Emilio Estevez is fun in it, and a lot of fun stuff happens. But it's just to me, it's just a boring, stupid movie, you know. Anyway, but there's this great scene where Stephen King is in it, and he plays a guy that's trying to get something out of an ATM, and because something happened in the world, like cosmic rays hit Earth, and it made all of the machines have a mind of their own. That's basically what his film's about. So he's trying to use an ATM, and he's talking to his wife, and he's just like, "This ATM called me an asshole." That's like the famous Stephen King cameo in his movie. Anyway, it was like the one and only movie he ever directed, because it either didn't go well or it didn't do well, and it just soured him from ever directing another movie of his own work.
Which is probably for the best for everybody.
Probably for the best.
But De Laurentiis was producing that, and Stephen King went to De Laurentiis to take a meeting for the money for Evil Dead 2. De Laurentiis greenlit that and gave him the money and gave him the freedom that they wanted because he was just a producer. He cared about the bottom line. And so they were able to make Evil Dead 2, which launched their careers. I know there was at least one Sam Raimi movie in between Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2.
Yeah, so they make Evil Dead, and it's a pretty good indie success story, and they're getting some notoriety and stuff. So then there's Sam Raimi living with Joel and Ethan Coen, and Frances McDormand, and Kathy Bates, and another friend of Raimi's called Scott Spiegel, and they're all living together in a house in, like, LA. Can you imagine that in the early 80s? Like, nobody's really that famous.
It sounds awesome.
Isn't that crazy? And Joel and Ethan Coen helped Raimi write a movie called Crime Wave. And that's the movie, the next movie that Raimi directs after Evil Dead. And it is, I guess, I've never seen it, but it's just awful. It had a lot of studio interference, or whatever you want to call it, because I don't know if they had like a major studio helping, but it had a lot of interference from executives, and they wanted to do this and that. And it like soured Joel and Ethan to ever letting anybody like direct something that they wrote. They were just like, we got to direct our own movies, you know, if we get the chance. And it kind of killed Sam Raimi's initial success that he got from the Evil Dead. He's like, what do I do? And then here comes the Laurentiis deal. And he's just like, I'll help you make Evil Dead 2. It seems like a surefire way to get back on track. So that's where Evil Dead 2 comes about, and he gets with that guy, Scott Spiegel, he was living with. And Spiegel kind of wants him to go in more of a comedy route, from what I read. So I think they took it upon themselves to simplify the story and make it a little more fun, comedy-wise, and also make Ash more of a superhero, I guess, more of a well-known pop culture icon in the horror community, or at least that was their goal, and that's what led them to do Evil Dead 2.
It's pretty much right there. One detail that I like is that Army of Darkness was always the planned sequel to the Evil Dead. Right. But De Laurentiis, who was all about the bottom line, was like, no, do something more like the first one.
Probably a good idea, though. You know, I feel like Army of Darkness benefits because of the budget and the studio they were working with, you know, like Universal. It was able to make the movie big and grand in the way that I think that they probably imagined it would be. Otherwise, the whole movie would have looked like that very end scene of Evil Dead 2, where he's back with the Knights, you know what I mean? It would have looked a little chintzy.
Oh my god, yes.
Can you imagine?
Those Knights looked terrible. Well, in Evil Dead, Aaron, 5 friends go and visit a cabin in the woods. They find a book and a tape recorder. Apparently the owner of the cabin was some sort of archaeologist. What's the right word for that?
I would say archaeologist. I mean,
and he had found the Book of the Dead. Can you say it off the top of your head, the title of the Book of the Dead?
Oh, something. I don't know. They call it the Necronomicon, but it's something else. I can't remember.
No, that was pretty much...
Is that it? Necronomicon?
Yeah.
I thought there was like another word that started with a D. It comes before Necronomicon.
No, there was a word after.
Gotcha. If we could see each other here the way we normally record this, I would show you that I have Evil Dead 2 on DVD that came in a reproduction of the Necronomicon with all the pages inside, and it's got this really gross foam latex on the outside, and when you push the eye, it screams.
That's pretty awesome.
But you can't see it, sorry. But if people know what I'm talking about, if they're fans of the series.
Yeah. So they turn on this tape recorder, and this researcher guy, he says these crazy old Sumerian words out loud, and it... Incantation, yes, thanks.
Yes, which raises the dead yet again.
Are we talking demons? Like, are these possessions? It seems like possessions.
That's always been my question about these movies, is what does that, the dead, actually mean? Like, raising the dead? Like, possessing the dead? Are they dead? I mean, is it demons? Is it zombies? It feels to me like they're bringing demons from hell and the demons have the run of the place. Like, they can do whatever they want. They can possess people, they can be monsters, they can be skeletons, as we'll see in Army of Darkness.
I think I'm going with demon. I think
Yeah.
I'm comfortable there.
And you know what the beauty of this series is they don't really need to explain it. It's just some sort of evil force, and it comes in many different forms.
For me, my experience with these movies, just to go off on a tangent, is I think roughly the same as you in terms of Army of Darkness. I remember that being kind of a cultural touchstone when we were in our late teens. But I don't think I've revisited any of these movies since then, like the late 90s. And watching them was so hard. I fell asleep watching The Evil Dead twice. I fell asleep watching Evil Dead Part 2. And it wasn't until I watched Army of Darkness attentively and all the way through where I was like, oh, yes, that's why this series is fun.
Right.
And then I went back and I rewatched Evil Dead 2 and enjoyed it, and rewatched The Evil Dead and enjoyed it. These early works, they're almost like having to learn a different language. The filmmaking style is so different and extreme that it's hard to comprehend. Like, it's so different from what we get nowadays, for better or worse.
Yeah, it's the kind of films that they weren't making those movies for your average mom and dad or family or somebody who likes to go check out Ghostbusters, in the movie theater. They were making it for people that were fans of horror movies and who were fans of low budget films and things like that. And if you're like a film making kid, like I was and am in Michigan, it's kind of like you're handed a list of movies you have to watch, and two of them are Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2.
It's actually in the Michigan Constitution.
Right. If you don't know anything about these movies, and you can't talk about Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi being from Michigan, then you have no business being a filmmaker. So I felt like a duty to see these movies and learn why you should respect them and stuff. So it took me a little bit to kind of, I don't know if I needed to see Army of Darkness to appreciate the first two, but I think I can't say which one made me appreciate the whole series. Like, I feel like it may have been the first one, actually, which is strange because it's the outlier really in the series, because Ash becomes such a character in the second one that he wasn't in the first one, and that really made up the rest of the franchise, which is going till today, the Ash from Evil Dead 2, not the Ash from Evil Dead 1.
To really hammer that home, after really spending so much time with these characters, I'm convinced they're national heroes, and there should be a specific day to celebrate them.
He's like our Rocky, and Philadelphia has Rocky. We have Bruce Campbell. That's what we have.
There should absolutely be a Bruce Campbell statue.
But I argue we also have RoboCop. But that's only because it was set in Detroit. I mean, it was made by Verhoeven, which is... Paul Verhoeven feels very Sam Raimi-ish and vice versa a lot. I feel like they make similar movies. There's just something about the way RoboCop and Total Recall is made that reminds me of the way Sam Raimi makes films.
I'm with you there.
I know I just threw that out here, so maybe you didn't have time to compute that. But if you think about it, I think you'll think I'm right.
Oh, no, I totally agree. I mean, Verhoeven, instead of, if Sam Raimi had been more towards sci-fi and fantasy, I think we would have seen a lot of those elements in his movies. The same if Verhoeven was a horror director.
Yeah.
But yes, very heightened, very gory. Like, the blood is always everywhere in both of these guys' stuff.
And there's a certain comedy to it, there's like a dark comedy.
So before we get back to the first Evil Dead, did you know that there was an original ending for Army of Darkness? I want to cover this so that we don't forget.
Well, I know the ending that I've always seen, where he gets back to the present and he's back in the grocery store.
Right, and I don't think they ever filmed the alternate ending.
Okay.
Because the studio didn't like it.
Gotcha.
But it would have had him basically not going home, and he took the potion and they accidentally sent him too far into the future, where he would have been in an apocalyptic wasteland.
Oh, that's very interesting.
And then he would have just been doing the same thing where he's just screaming and losing his mind in an apocalyptic wasteland. And so if this series of films had just constantly sent Ash to random places to fight demons,
right,
it would have been amazing.
It would have been the quantum leap of the horror franchise.
Yes, and that would have been fun.
Yeah.
And so, like, you know, Army of Darkness, that ending really sets the stage for the TV show. And if you look at his character in the TV show, which I've only watched the first 15 minutes of the first episode,
okay,
you can see Ash being that character, but you also see a completely different Ash than the movies. Like,
yeah,
it's believable, but they could have made him any kind of character in that series, and because we don't really know a lot about the character, we just see the trauma.
Well, what you'll learn when you watch the series, and I don't want to give you any spoilers, but to me it was pretty clear that they combined Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 is canon, and they omitted the part where he went to the medieval ages. And I think that's because Army of Darkness is owned by a different company than Ash vs. Evil Dead, and they didn't really have the rights to use any of that storyline. So I think they just took all that out. Now, they don't say it didn't happen, but they never talk about the fact that he went back to the medieval ages in Ash vs. Evil Dead. And what they did do is they do talk about him having all of his friends at the cabin, including his sister Cheryl, die. And the thought is that they call him Ashy Slashy because the town believes that he killed them all at the cabin. So I knew watching the show, I got the idea. I was like, okay, so Evil Dead 2 said it was just him and his girlfriend at the cabin and they got rid of the friends. But the show says no, there were friends there, including his sister. But they don't ever mention the medieval ages. So that's the only spoils I'll throw out to you. But I don't know if that really matters.
Interesting.
Yeah. But the first episode is directed by Sam Raimi, so there you go. You get to see another Sam Raimi direction, even though he hasn't made a feature film since like 2013.
Right. It's actually worth talking about that real quick too. Let's just keep going on tangents. Sam Raimi might have one of the best film records of many directors. Like, this guy has not... I'm just going to go through his filmography real quick. It's short. We've got It's Murder, which I've never seen. Have you seen?
Nope.
The Evil Dead, and then Crime Wave, the movie you talked about that bombed.
Yep, never saw it.
And then Evil Dead Part 2. And then he went on to make his own superhero movie called Dark Man.
I'm sure everybody knows about that.
Yep, it's a take on The Shadow, which he was a big fan of and unable to get the rights to. So, Dark Man, and then he goes and does Army of Darkness. And then we have The Quick and the Dead. Do you remember that movie?
I do, with Sharon Stone, Gene Hackman, I believe.
And,
Gene Hackman.
and young Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, DiCaprio. I really liked that movie.
Yeah, it was good. And then A Simple Plan, another big hit. I never saw that.
I think it might be his finest film.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, but it's a very different side of him, obviously, because, you know, he's the Evil Dead guy, too, and Spider-Man. It's really good, and it's kind of his Fargo, you know? I think he wanted to make a version of Fargo in his own way, and he kind of did, you know? It's really, really good.
Cool. I have to watch it sometime, and I think I'm gonna now because I'm a fan of Sam Raimi. For Love of the Game was his next movie. Kevin Costner baseball movie, based on the Tigers. It was fun, and I love baseball, so I loved it.
Yep, never saw it.
And then The Gift.
Yeah, I like that one with Cate Blanchett.
Don't know if I ever saw it.
I think it was big because Katie Holmes was topless in it, so you get that too as well. You can check
I
that
have
out.
seen it. Yeah.
Now you wait. Yep. No, those I remember. I remember.
And then he does a couple of small hits, Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, those little tiny
And,
movies.
and then Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, which was really what made him a well-known film director. Was that
Yep.
third installment where he could do no
And,
wrong?
and then after that, he makes Drag Me to Hell, which is widely regarded as a great movie. I have not watched
You not
it.
seen it? It's really fun. It's a fun movie, and I guess that was what he was going to make before Spider-Man came along. So then he put that aside to do the Spider-Man series.
And then, for whatever reason, after that, he doesn't do much. 4 years later, he does Oz the Great and Powerful for Disney.
Which
I'm
I
guessing
did not enjoy.
I never saw it. I was never
I
interested in
just
it.
thought it was dumb, and you know how like we all love Tim Burton, and then he started to go off the rails when he started making movies for Disney. That kind of is the same thing. It has the same feel to it. Like he just made this shitty, big CGI spectacular movie. I mean, maybe if I saw it again, I wouldn't think it's shitty, but I just remember not caring at all, and what they tried to do with James Franco's professor or whoever Oz is, it was just ridiculous. I don't know. It just was like, really? Just because you're a fan of The Wizard of Oz doesn't mean you got to make your own version.
Yeah, like, I'm not a fan of that, going back to that material. And it was going to be hard to pull off for anybody.
I think you're right about that. Yeah.
But now, next year, we get his take on Doctor Strange.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, is that a paycheck movie, or is he really into it?
Yeah.
Benedict Cumberbatch's Doctor Strange. Like, they're perfectly fine movies, and he's perfectly fine in the Marvel universe. But I'm just like, I don't know. Where's the passion? Are we going to see the Sam Raimi passion for that? I question that.
At this point, he hasn't made a movie in 8 years.
Yeah.
There might be some passion there.
No, he produces a lot. He executive produces a lot. So, he's still in the business. He's still busy. But yes, he hasn't really had a project that he's really sank his teeth into, I feel like.
I think not since Drag Me to Hell.
Yeah. Well, I think the Oz thing was very important to him because he had always said that Wizard of Oz was his favorite movie.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a wonderful film, and that, holy cow, like, look what kind of movie they made in 1939. It was like none other, and I agree, but, that's mostly nostalgia talking for him, I feel like. It doesn't mean just because that's the movie that really spoke to you as a child, doesn't mean you should make your own version of it when you get older. Like, I'm not going to go make Ghostbusters, you know what I mean? Like a version of Ghostbusters when I get older. It's just not a good idea. Paul Feige, or whatever his name is. Isn't that his name? Paul Feige? Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about Ghostbusters 2016.
Yes, exactly. Which was a misfire in many ways. And
Yeah.
I just thought that is not what he should have spent his time doing. I think he should have said to himself, there's nothing for me to gain in trying to make my own version of Ghostbusters.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
No, it wasn't great. And it's not for lack of trying. Like, I thought it looked cool. I thought the movie, the ghosts and everything looked fun, and all the cameo appearances were fine, and the girls did a fine job, but it just wasn't funny. And when it's not funny, it tanked, in my mind.
Yeah, the writing just wasn't there for
Yeah.
a Ghostbusters movie. And there's definitely a thing as a Ghostbusters movie, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, even the new one might be forgettable too. Hopefully not. But it's just that Jason Reitman has such a connection to it. His dad made the first two. He was in the second one, in a little role. Like, he grew up with those movies, and it means a lot to him. So him making another one, I was like, all right, I'm cool with that. That's fine.
My fingers are crossed that it's going to be amazing, but
Yeah, I
we'll
hope so.
see. So yeah, Sam Raimi has had a hell of a career, and I didn't pay him enough respect before we started covering this series. Back to Evil Dead.
So everybody dies.
Everybody but Ash dies.
Yeah, they get like his sister Cheryl is there. I just remember her name Cheryl. and I think there's a Scott is the guy, and Linda is Ash's girlfriend, and yeah, so Ashley, as they call him in that movie, pretty much has to battle everybody who gets possessed. They all die, and then it ends with like a cliffhanger where he thinks he's safe, but then here comes evil running through the house, and it like overtakes him. Cut to black, credits.
Yeah, and it was a big, huge, amazing success. Do you know the budget?
I think it was like 300,000 or something like that.
Yeah, it was between 3 and 4, and it grossed 2.7 million.
Yeah, not bad.
Now, a few years later, we get the Evil Dead 2, and does it pick up right where the first movie leaves off? No, we get the 7-minute recap where basically the 3 friends are gone, and I think that's just to conserve space. And then
I think they're just omitted, just because they felt the story when they started writing the in name only sequel. They were like, can we just cut to it? Can we just have Ash with his girlfriend and leave it at that, and then make this more of a Bruce Campbell showpiece?
And I mean, now Bruce Campbell is back, and he has the good hair, and so we quickly get a recap, and we're up to the end of the first movie, and it has Ash getting shot across the woods, and he himself gets possessed. He has to the demon in him is just kind of driving him crazy. His girlfriend's body digs itself up out of her grave. It messes with him, and then did she bite him? Is that how his hand gets infected?
I think it just gets overtaken by the Evil Dead. I can't recall there's any actual action that happened that causes his hand to be possessed. It's just another funny turn of events where his hand just becomes possessed. And the reason his girlfriend is possessed, or raises from the dead, is because, as the doctor explains, or the archaeologist explains, you have to dismember the dead, and that's the way to stop the possession. And he didn't really do that. He just buried her.
And they laid out direct rules in the Evil Dead 2013 movie. It's you have to dismember them, you have to bury them alive, or burn them.
Oh, I don't remember the details of that movie, but I do remember enjoying it. Did you ever see it?
Oh, I just finished watching it.
Okay. Did you like it?
At first I was like, you can't make Evil Dead just like every other popular horror movie. But it was like a slow burn where it was like, oh, you think we're normal? Oh, this isn't normal. This isn't a movie. Wait till the end.
Yeah, and it found its fun. And then with that, I feel like it found a way to fit into the Evil Dead franchise, is because it became ridiculous at the end. And I was like, oh, this is good.
Yeah, and by the end, I really enjoyed it.
And did you see the very post-credits scene?
Oh, of course I did.
Yeah, so that was his way of making it, oh no, this is still part of the franchise.
Raimi talked about wanting to bridge that and having have the main character in the 2013 film join forces with Ash.
Right.
But Bruce Campbell has said that he is retired from doing Ash anymore.
Well, whatever that meant at the end of that movie, we all assumed was another movie, with Ash coming back. But whatever that was supposed to be definitely turned into Ash vs. Evil Dead, which didn't have anything to do with the reboot, but whatever that cameo implied, that's what it became. That's just how I took it. He's back. He's going to be back for something, and it happened to be this 3-season television show.
They've got another. They've got a sequel in theory out there for the 2013 reboot.
Oh, okay.
So we'll see.
Yeah, I do think he is done with it though, but you never know. You never say never.
Her name was Maya, and the plot of that movie is pretty much the same as the original.
Yeah.
But they did a really nice job of just giving fan service where fan service was due.
Yep.
And they left you on the hook the entire movie, trying to figure out who was going to be the Ash.
Yep. Yeah.
Like, and they did not reveal who the Ash was until like the last 5 minutes of the movie, and you were waiting so long that when they finally do it, it's fulfilling.
Yeah, I'll have to watch that again. I just remember not being disappointed, and that was the one reboot I can think of where I'm just like, well, that worked. And I hardly ever give credit to reboots, so
They are all very clear that it happens in the same universe, like
Yep.
even without that, they have Ash's car parked next to the cabin.
which is Raimi's car, and I believe it's appeared in almost every one of his films except for The Quick and the Dead and The Oz Great and Powerful. Honestly, I don't think they couldn't find an actual way where it would fit into those two movies. But I think it has been in every film. It's the car that Uncle Ben drives, in Spider-Man movies.
And pretty much Bruce Campbell has also been in almost every one of his movies.
Almost everyone.
Which made me realize that there is a very, very good chance that Bruce Campbell is going to join the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
It's possible.
And that makes me happy. Because through the years and through the careers of these guys, Bruce Campbell, Tappert, and Raimi, one thing you really see is that they stay close to their friends. Like, they're always working with each other, they're always giving each other jobs, and I don't know if I've ever seen such a tight-knit group like this before.
Well, I remember we spoke about this with Robert Rodriguez, like how he keeps it in the family. And yeah, it's similar. I don't know, you just grow up around people and you want to spread the wealth, I guess. And you it's a comfort factor. You like working with the same people because everybody's committed and you get the results. Why try new people who can just disappoint you?
It's true. Like Robert Tappert, who is married to Xena.
Yeah,
you know
Lucy Lawless, right?
He co-created Xena Warrior Princess, later marries her, which is how we often see Bruce Campbell in Xena and Hercules in the 90s. Did you remember that?
Campbell was a regular on Xena, wasn't he?
It wasn't it was about 5 episodes on Hercules and about 10 episodes on Xena.
Okay.
All in that circle. That's why you'll see Lucy Lawless will also pop up in different projects.
Yep.
Like, they all kind of just show up in their same roles, and it's great. I just like friends hanging out with friends, that's all.
Well, hint, hint. Keep watching the TV show.
Oh, yes, I'm going to watch it all. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Ash has to cut off his hand because it's been possessed. And so he cuts it off, and he has a stump, and he's just going crazy. I love, the way that Raimi does special effects, because these are all just practical, crazy effects that you never see anywhere. And B, I love that he gives Bruce Campbell the room to work, but Bruce Campbell, he's losing his mind over and over in these movies in just that Bruce Campbell way. There's the scene in part 2 where all of the appliances are laughing at him.
I love that part.
And it would have been so hard to do.
Yeah, there's not many, I don't know, something about Campbell, he just gets away with it. Like, not every actor could be hammy and campy and loud and in your face, and say these ridiculous lines, but he totally sells it and gets away with it. That's the magic of Bruce Campbell, and I don't know another actor that's anywhere close to that I can think of at the moment.
Off topic again, but friends working with friends. Bruce Campbell is at the very beginning of Dusk Till Dawn Part 2.
Yes,
and he gets murdered pretty quick. But we talked about this before, from Dusk Till Dawn Part 2, written and directed by the guy you mentioned before. The guy that was living in his house. Yes.
Yes, right. He's definitely cameoed in different movies, Scott Spiegel. And I feel like he wrote Spider-Man 3 with Sam. I'm not sure.
He's done so much stuff.
Or his brother Ivan Raimi wrote Spider-Man 3 with Sam Raimi as well. And then Ted Raimi, of course, is his brother, and he appears in a lot of his stuff as well. Anyway, yes, but Spiegel, he's the guy in Spider-Man 2 when Peter Parker is saving those. He's delivering the pizzas, and he throws the pizzas away to save those kids, and they're on like a balcony. He's the guy that walks out and sees the pizza and takes a piece to eat it, and then gets it. Spider-Man webs the slice of pizza away from him. He's that's that guy. Isn't that funny?
He's credited as rooftop pizza thief.
There you go. Yeah.
So yeah, we have a lot of Bruce Campbell insanity going on.
Yeah.
I just thought about his evil clone, but that's not till Army of Darkness.
Yep. Although he does see himself in the mirror, and that's a little bizarre. That might be the first inkling of a demonic doppelganger or something,
Yeah, there's basically something hanging out in him. Now we have to talk about the subplot for this movie, which horror movies have that a lot more now, but of these three movies, I think we only have this one subplot. Did Army of Darkness have anything that they cut away from Ash for?
No, I mean, it was really just his movie.
Yeah, it's interesting. So they expand out on the researcher from the first movie and have it that his daughter is also a researcher.
Yep.
And she's on her way to the cabin because she has just found ripped out pieces of the Necronomicon.
Necronomicon.
Yeah. We have these guys approaching the cabin this whole time, right as Ash had his hand cut off and he's totally losing his mind. These characters get to the cabin and they beat up Ash and they throw him into the basement.
Yeah, they assume that he's the one that killed her parents.
So they play the tape recorder, and the husband goes on to explain that a demon has possessed his wife and that he chopped her up and put her in the basement.
Yep. Which
is exactly when she pops up out of the ground and starts to mess with Ash, and the people help Ash out of the basement.
Yeah, and the mother's demonic self is played by Ted Raimi, who is Sam Raimi's younger brother.
Which is hilarious, because I knew
he pops up in a lot of movies, mostly with Bruce Campbell, but he's well known to be in the Spider-Man films as J. Jonah Jameson's assistant. He's pretty funny in that movie.
See, I'm so excited to revisit those next.
Yeah.
Just knowing all of this for the baseline of it.
Right.
But we kind of have the same scenario as the first movie, where we now have 5 characters in a cabin in the woods, and they're all gonna basically get possessed and killed by Ash.
Right.
I mean, not to make it too simple.
The first one is your basic horror movie where people have to survive and most of them get killed, except there's one final character that makes it out, for all intent and purposes. And then the second one takes a little bit to add more to the story of the Necronomicon and where the evil demons come from in our history. But at the same time, it still follows the same storyline where they all have to survive and only one's going to be the victor. However, this time they make Ash more of a superhero. I don't know what a better word to say, but I feel like he's like a demon-killing superhero. Is like what they did not do to him in the first movie, but this is what they decided to do with him in the second.
Right. By the end of the movie, his torn shirt and the belt straps, that look for Ash is the iconic look.
Yeah, the blue shirt, brown pants, and the chainsaw strapped to his arm. And then the quips. Groovy.
Yes.
Those kind of things.
I feel like I had an Ash action figure growing up.
Did you? Oh, I would have loved one.
I feel like I did. Because something about this series really resonates with me as a child, and I know it's not Evil Dead and Evil Dead Part 2.
Yeah. Well, it is kind of a safe way to enjoy horror movies. Like, a lot of horror movies are just disturbing. And this is not a disturbing horror movie. These are funny horror movies, and you still get the blood and the gore, if that's what you came for.
Yes, I did. My children did watch these movies with me the first time.
Yeah.
And I made Charlie the promise at the beginning of watching them all that Ash was gonna live throughout all of them.
Yep.
I didn't want that suspense for her. And so every time something was scary in any of the second and third movies, she was like, "You told me he's gonna live." And she said that so many times, and my kids really liked these movies.
There's some of the movies that I know my kids would probably enjoy, but they do not like any movie, even Ghostbusters, where a character is like possessed and they're all like in like up in your face, like right in the camera, you know, like they are not, that freaks them out. So I know that if, as much as they might enjoy these films, there's those few periods throughout all three of them that would really creep them out. So they're a little too young for it, unfortunately. Like, I'm talking about Ghostbusters 2 we watched, which is a pretty funny movie, you know, pretty harmless. But then Ray gets possessed by Vigo at the end, you know, do you remember that? And he becomes this, like, crazy face, like, I am Ray now. And they were like, and they were, like, covering their eyes, and they freaked out, you know what I mean?
That's so cute.
I know. So I'm like, yeah, I know. That's just the one thing they're just a little too young for.
But to wrap up Evil Dead Part 2, the researcher's daughter researcher, she reads a section of the Necronomicon.
You can't say it. You suck.
And she opens up a portal to send the evil back to where it came from.
Yep. Yeah, because what we learn a little more history about the book is that there's a prophecy that someone will come back and help defeat evil in the past. And the little cute little drawing in the book looks a lot like Ash. Maybe that has something, a little foreshadowing to it. Suffice it to say, the evil gets sucked into this portal.
Yes, it does. And along with them is Ash, who says...
And the car.
What does he say there? How do you turn this thing off? Enough already?
Something like that, yeah.
And,
enough already!
Then Ash drops to the ground with his car, which also got sucked away.
Yep.
And he appears to be in the past because he gets surrounded by knights.
Well, not only the past, but he changed continents. Now he appears to be in, like, early England or something, in, like, around 1300.
He appears to be in...
Don't ask too many questions.
Some sort of fairy tale where, for money purposes, we won't directly name the people.
I mean, he's not in Michigan, right? I mean, just because he went to the past, it doesn't mean he's in 1300 Michigan. That's just not... It's not where he is. He went to, like, London.
Yeah. He's definitely in England. Yeah. With a knight named Arthur and a wise man that advises him. And so there's a deadite with wings.
Which is the first time they ever mention that name, right? Is at the very end. Someone calls it a deadite.
Yes. Ash kills the deadite with his shotgun, and all the knights are like, "Yeah, you're our hero."
Yep.
And Ash is like, "No!" So another cliffhanger here for the Evil Dead franchise. This was in 1987. Now, I know that it was out there, but what popular movies were using cliffhanger endings like this?
I don't know. What?
I don't know. Like, I'm just...
I thought it was a trick question.
I don't see it a lot, and I can't think of very many examples, and I'm sure they're out there, so feel free to tell us on Twitter. But,
I feel like Evil Dead had the kind of ending where it could have just ended, and they may have never made another one. But Evil Dead 2, I think it was in his mind that we're going to tell the medieval Ash story someday. That's why we're going to include this. Like, it is to be continued. You know, I feel like there was a real purpose behind them doing it, not just to have a fun cliffhanger ending.
You know what? Their wish came true, and five years later...
Right, he makes Darkman, and he has more success, and he works with Liam Neeson and Frances McDormand, who's now getting to be a bigger star, and he works for a studio, so it's like, hey, Sam, what do you want to do next?
And what we get is Army of Darkness, a movie that kind of made sure that there wasn't going to be another sequel. Um, $11 million budget with a box office of 21. It doubled its money,
still
but
made it. Still made some money.
yeah,
It's not chump change. It's not pocket change.
this movie really drops the horror elements down to like a 2 and really plays up the action fantasy elements.
Well, just the comedy elements too.
Oh, yes, and the comedy.
I appreciate the comedy in this one, but I'm just not a Three Stooges fan. You know, I don't know why that. It's like Sammy's love of Wizard of Oz. Like, I get it, but I'm like, I'm not going to spend my time trying to make Wizard of Oz. Like, I know you love slapstick comedy, and I'm sure you love Three Stooges, but I don't need to have a whole, like, a 10-minute scene of, you know, poking eyes and whip, 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 you know, and, like, bopping heads and, like, fucking Moe and Curly and Larry and shit. It's just, like, it's a little annoying, but I get it, you know. So they, more than anything, play up the comedy in this movie.
You just said something there that I wanted to discuss, so might as well mention it while I'm remembering it. Sam Raimi, when he gets a bit, he sticks with it. Some of these scenes are uncomfortably long. Yeah,
totally uncomfortably long.
And it's a style and it's a choice, but it has an impact on the viewer where you start to feel unsettled. And
yeah, like, it doesn't ruin the movie at all because I think the whole is bigger than the parts. But if you had to, like, when I watch the movie, there's a certain skippable amount of scenes in Army of Darkness. But once you skip that scene, you get to something that's fun, you know, and then you skip the next one because it's a little overlong. But then you get back to the fun. So that's why it doesn't ruin the movie for me at all. But I don't care for the Three Stooges comedy or how long it took him to grab the right book in the graveyard.
Yeah, he wanted that pacing in his movies, and that's interesting.
Well, because when you get down to it, there's not much story, you know, so you kind of got to pad it out.
I mean, that's true too.
But he successfully makes it a fun ride, so you stick with it.
Yeah, and I mean, do you want to break down Army of Darkness plot-wise? I feel like I'm talking too much.
Well, you mentioned how each movie has kind of a recap of the previous film, and that's where Sam Raimi gets a chance to change a couple things. This one keeps most of Evil Dead 2 correct in its recap. However, his girlfriend is recast yet again, and now it's Bridget Fonda. Hey, Bridget Fonda, you're going to be in this movie for 45 seconds. But they do show that Ash works at a supermarket, S-Mart.
Yes.
And what is the funny tagline there? Shop smart, shop S-Mart. Yeah, that's it. So he takes his girlfriend Linda to the cabin. They awaken the dead with a Necronomicon. He gets sucked back in time. But, however, what they changed from Evil Dead 2 is that he was not welcomed as a hero right off the bat. He was actually enslaved by the King Arthur and his knights and brought to the castle. You know, he's trying to convince them it's all mistaken identity or not mistaken identity, but they have the wrong idea, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
About him. They think he's part of, like, a warring castle. Anyway, but Deadites appear, right? A Deadite. Well, because they have the Evil Dead in the ground, and that's where they kind of feed their enemies to. But he ends up defeating them and killing them in a grand fashion, so now they believe him to be this savior. And all he wants to do is go the hell home. He doesn't want to be their savior. He doesn't care. So, and this is why it's my favorite Bruce Campbell movie, just because he's so fucking funny in this movie, and he just does not give a shit, and he's really rude to people. It's so funny. Like, get the fuck out of my face, you know? It's so funny.
He does. He just calls all these people idiots and simpletons. It's great.
It's so funny. And he's like laying down the law. He holds up the gun and he's like, "This is my boomstick made in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Don't fuck with me. I just want to go home." So he gets the idea he's told that, hey, if you get the book in this creepy cemetery, and you say the words, bring the book to them, they'll be able to, I guess, send him home. But I was a little confused because they don't necessarily say that they'll be able to rid the Deadites, right? But the Deadites aren't really that much of a problem, I guess. It's only when he goes to get the book and he doesn't say the words correctly, because, yet again, he can't give a shit to get it right, that he actually inadvertently raises the dead and makes it a far bigger problem for the people in this time period than it would have been if he had never said anything at all, right?
Right, that's exactly right.
Right. So he gets the book and he has to escape the Evil Dead, and then he gets locked in this windmill for a while, and he has this kind of funny scene, I guess, where he has to go through the whole Three Stooges filmography with his evil little people versions of himself, and they're running amok, and it's all very funny, in its own little way. It just goes overly long, but it's important because he swallows one of them, and this is a great part of the scene, in that it becomes a duplicate that like almost like a cell, splitting into two. It like comes out of his body. And I love the special effects in this movie. Like, I love the charm of the first two films because they're very independent and they're cheap, and that's what looks amazing about the special effects. But I love these special effects because it has equal amounts of homage to Ray Harryhausen, with like Clash of the Titan, claymation kind of stuff. But but they also do fun, just trick photography in the way they cut away to show, the progression of this person forming, of the second Ash forming out of the original Ash, and he splits off into being like his evil doppelganger. Ash ends up killing the doppelganger, or he believes he kills him, buries him alive.
So this was, the windmill stuff all takes place before he gets the book.
It does? Okay.
And
I thought he got the book and then he ran away from the cemetery, and that's where he goes to the windmill.
I don't think he goes back. But no, it's because when he messes up and he doesn't read the words right,
yeah,
that's when his doppelganger is resurrected from the grave.
Oh, gotcha. That's right. Okay.
Along with the skeletons.
Right, because he's on his way to find the books, and it starts, the dead starts chasing him through the woods in classic Evil Dead woods cam, which was popularized by Sam Raimi, where you just have this point of view shot that's just running through the woods with great music cuts, like that's what makes it so terrifying. Really simple way of showing a demonic presence without showing anything at all. That's what I love about that.
It's ridiculous because my heart always wants to know what is running through the woods and knocking over those trees.
And it always catches up with the person. And then it cuts to the reversal, and it's never close.
Yeah.
They always get away from it, for the most part. That's right. So he gets scared off from his search for the book, does the windmill thing, has this double created, goes to the cemetery. There's 3 books. He has little funny scenes with them until he finally picks the right one, but he says the words all wrong, raises the dead, raises his double, who now becomes like a grotesque version of Ash and the new de facto leader of this army of darkness that will now come and destroy mankind at the castle setting where Ash goes back to and hands the book and says, "Okay, now send me home." And they're like, "Did you say the words right?" "Yeah, more or less." And he just like coughed it out. I love that.
And I guess ignore what I said earlier about the TV show establishing Ash as kind of a bumbling loser, because this movie is establishing him as kind of a bumbling loser. So yeah, never mind.
But his loserdom comes from just not giving a shit, not that he's an idiot. He just doesn't give a shit, and he fucks up a lot. But it's not because he's stupid.
Right.
I think that's the difference. And I think that's the charm that Bruce Campbell brings to this kind of role, is that you don't pity him for his stupidity. It's like almost you just like facepalm his bad luck that results from his lack of caring. I don't know. That's just how I feel about it.
And so everybody in the castle is like, all right, fuck you, man. All right, yeah,
Yeah.
you go home. We don't
Yeah,
need
get
your
the
help.
fuck out of here, then.
There's a little element of you mentioned her earlier. Ash has a love interest at the castle. It's at this point that a winged deadite comes and takes her away.
Yep.
And that's when Ash is like, all right, I'm going to have to freaking help these people. And we get one of those moments that they kind of tried to recapture in the 2013 reboot where they pop open the trunk of his car and they build a crazy weapon.
Yes.
Was it basically just he had a chemistry notebook and he turned his car into like a steam engine?
Yeah, he opened up the back of his car. That's right. He just had all kinds of junk in there. He still had like college textbooks from like when he dropped out. So he had like a chemistry book. So that I love it because it's kind of like if you go back in time, my futuristic knowledge would make me such a genius. But that's what it felt like to me, is that, hey, check this chemistry book out, you know. So then he's able to like impart this school book knowledge on this Da Vinci type, you know, from back in the day. So with his help, they're able to create explosives and give him a fake hand like Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, the fake hand was something.
I know what it is, and it happens again in the TV show where they don't want to keep having to take his hand out of every shot because he obviously has a hand, and they have to hide it all the time. So you give him a fake hand, and then you don't have to worry about all that post work.
Yeah, that's a smart workaround for when you don't want a chainsaw strapped to it.
Exactly.
So they're getting ready to battle the army of the dead, but before we get to the climax of the movie, when they throw Ash in the pit at the beginning of the movie, and the wise old wizard throws down the chainsaw,
Yeah.
we get that first shot, that heroic shot of him reaching out his arm,
Yeah.
and the chainsaw connecting with it perfectly at the right moment. Like, right there is actually where superhero cinema was born.
You think so?
We got 1992, like,
Yeah.
and it was exactly one of those moments, like in Spider-Man, that inspired some awe, even though it was a guy in a chainsaw.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like he was imitating that kind of famous trope. But you're right. I can't think of what movie he was exactly imitating.
I mean, I could see that as being very possible, but I've got nothing off the top of my head.
Yeah.
If you can think of it, audience, tell us on Twitter.
There's the evil point of view shot through the woods. That's Sam's thing. And then you have where the camera is basically strapped to an object that's flying through the air. That is another Sam Raimi shot in a movie. He like owns that shot. Like when an arrow flies and the camera's like with the arrow as it's going through. And the chainsaw, the same thing, you know. There's just those shots that speak Sam Raimi. So when anybody else does them in movies, that's like the Sam Raimi shot.
How crazy is that? Like,
yeah, I love that.
So now we're to the climactic battle between good and evil. Good Ash versus bad Ash. He's got the townspeople all soldiered up and trained, and everybody's an expert, and I think it's only been about 2 days. So yeah, long story short, Ash wins. Bad guys die. I think it's very funny that his love interest, who's turned into or is possessed by a demon, I mean, she just gets killed.
Yeah, there's no bringing her back.
No, like, doesn't happen a lot, but I think they did that one dirty.
Well, isn't Ash is the only one that's been possessed and survives and gets past his possession, right?
Yeah, I
mean, nobody
so.
else survives. It's just the way it goes.
In the 2013, that should have been my big clue as to who was going to be the Ash, is they throw you off because she's the first one possessed.
Oh,
And
okay. Yeah, I don't remember that.
You think that she's just going to be dead. And yeah, they do the switcheroo, and then she's Ash. Not to keep talking about that one, even though it's just a reboot.
No, it's
not
fine.
a sequel.
I mean, that's the thing about it, is that, like I said before, like it felt like they did it right when they rebooted something. You know, like they did it justice, so you don't mind including it as like a little cousin of these movies or something. You know,
The fact that Raimi and Campbell all produced it. Like, that was
Right.
my selling point to rent it. Is, they were all actively involved. This wasn't something done by the studios for money. It was them trying to make money. The way it's supposed to be. Something that I like about that 2013 movie, zero CGI.
Really? I didn't know that. Oh, that's clever.
Like, they do CGI. When you say zero CGI nowadays, they mean we still use CGI to touch up the actors' faces, but other than that.
Ah.
Because apparently they always touch up actors' faces using CGI, like, just everywhere now.
It doesn't surprise me, just because people look more perfect than they ever did in movies.
Yeah. So yeah, all the effects are their own, just like in these original 3 movies.
The very end of Army of Darkness, we should probably talk about that.
Yeah.
He gets back to the present. He's finishing telling his story of his medieval adventure to his coworker at the S-Mart, who's Ted Raimi. What do you know? Who could give a shit less as well.
Yes.
But then the Evil Dead is still around, so Deadeye appears, and he has to take it out in classic Ash fashion right in the middle of the S-Mart. And he has a couple funny quips. And, yeah. That's pretty much how it ends.
Yeah, and I don't know if Wikipedia can be trusted here, but the thought process was that he incorrectly said the incantation at the end of Army of Darkness on his way home.
Yes, right. Yeah, that's what it said, because I think Ted Raimi's coworker character asked him, did you say it right this time? And he's like, yeah. Well, I may not have said every syllable right, but for the most part, because, that's a throwback. That's a callback to when he said it wrong the first time,
And so that's
funny.
the suggestion, is how the Deadite was able to follow him back from the past.
Right. But that's a perfect ending for that movie, because that leads into the new show. The 3 seasons of the show is him working at this grocery store. The Evil Dead still being around, basically. And
30 years later.
Exactly.
So
you've only watched like 15 minutes?
I'm long enough in where I know that he brought the Deadites back because he got stoned with a young lady.
Yes. That's so awesome.
That's as far as I know.
Well, have you met Pablo yet?
No.
Okay, well, he's a great character. He's one of the main characters in the movie. He's awesome. He becomes his kind of like number 2 on their quest to stop the Evil Dead. And Kelly, I don't know if you've met Kelly in the show yet either.
No.
Oh, you'll love her. She's good. She's like, I can't remember the actress's name, but she's like smoldering in that show. She's very fine. But she's great at it. So the 3 of them together, Pablo, Ash, and Kelly, are quite a awesome team. That's really why the show was a big success in my mind. So it was fun to watch them.
I'm really excited to check it out. I'm going to try to finish it all, and I'll let you know when we talk about Spider-Man what I thought.
So the thing I was going to say is, how did this not turn Bruce Campbell into a leading man? What leading man film did Bruce Campbell do after this movie? I don't think he did any, did he?
He has done a ton, but yes, we are absolutely missing a lot of leading man action. Immediately following this
he's
movie...
He's still awesome, but that was his prime.
Yeah, he doesn't even work again until 94.
He did The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. Did you ever watch that show?
I totally watched that show.
I loved that show, but again, it was very misunderstood. It never caught on after like a season.
It doesn't feel like Bruce Campbell was interested in being a movie star.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. Like, I look at his choices. Like, he's hanging out with friends. He's in Hudsucker Proxy.
Yeah.
He's got a role in Congo.
Yeah, right.
And then he's hanging out in The Quick and the Dead. He's got a role in Escape from L.A.
Oh, we're going to cover that soon, too, aren't we?
Oh, we are.
Maybe not soon, but we will.
Yeah, he just kind of pops in and out. Like, his most consistent work is in TV.
Yeah.
And I really wonder if just that's what he cared about. I didn't even know about some of these credits. Did you know he was on Burn Notice?
I did know that. See, I knew that's why that was like his big TV show. Many episodes.
111 episodes.
Right. Just something on TNT or TBS that I would never watch. Like all those shows that are on there.
The whole pitch is a burn notice is when a spy gets kicked out of his organization.
Right.
And so, like, the premise is kind of fun, but I think I only ever watched one episode.
Yeah, and his character's like a Hawaiian shirt wearing Private Eye or something, right?
I do not know.
Yeah, I don't know. But hey, he had a career, you know? I mean, he's paying the bills, he's acting, that's what he likes to do. I feel like he wanted to be a leading man, really. And it begs the question, because I think Sam Raimi was in the running to direct a Superman film in the 90s. Would Bruce Campbell have been on that list to be Superman?
Oh, he would have been Superman.
Now, I've never really seen Campbell do a serious turn. You know, there's always a little comedy in his heart-aching kind of scenes, you know. Could he have pulled it off? I don't know. But he definitely had the looks and the confidence.
I could see a studio overruling Raimi and saying that you had to have a bigger actor.
Well, that's what they did in the Crime Wave movie, his second movie, because he wanted Bruce to star in it. And they said, no, we need a Hollywood actor. And then the choice for the lead was some dude that, like, nobody's ever heard of again after that movie. I don't know. I can't even remember his name. Like, not a star, but they assumed he would be a star, and that's why they forced Raimi to have him as the lead, and then he gave a good role to Bruce anyways in the movie, and he kind of steals the show, I guess, is what they said about that Crime Wave film.
Yeah, it's totally a movie that I would really like watching, even if it is a big pile of garbage.
I just feel like we missed out. We missed out on some good 90s Bruce Campbell starring role movies, and we'll never get that chance again, so we should all be ashamed of ourselves.
I hope someday we can go to a Comic-Con and get a signature from him.
But I think he's probably happy. I think he has. He's been a successful actor, and he's definitely embraced the B-movie actor side, you know, of his notoriety. So much so that he was in a great movie that he wrote and directed called My Name is Bruce. Did you ever see any of his movies that he made? He made The Man with the Screaming Brain, and he made My Name is Bruce, and they're both very fun movies.
I've heard of The Man with Screaming, or The Man with the Screaming Brain. That's kind of a cult hit.
Yeah. My Name is Bruce is even better. I think that's the better of the two films.
Really?
Where he just kind of plays himself. You know, everybody knows he's the Evil Dead guy, and then he ends up getting in real trouble with monsters, and he has to save this town and stuff. And it's a pretty good film.
Just looking through the dates, there hasn't been a year, there's not a single year where Bruce Campbell doesn't have a credit to his name.
Yeah, there you go. See, he's working.
Oh, no, that's a lie. We're missing a 1984, but there's two 1985s, so he made up for it. The guy has been all over the place. I love him, and yeah, I might get a Bruce Campbell tattoo. It'll be great.
Final thoughts.
Yeah, I was going to say final thoughts. These movies are good, but they hurt your brain. And yeah, that's it. I like them. Go watch them.
I like him too. I said what I want to say about Campbell. He deserved better from us, but that ship has sailed. And I would like to see Sam Raimi have another passion project. Maybe it'll be the Doctor Strange movie, but that would be surprising.
Yeah.
So we'll have to wait and see. But it is a sequel, so we could cover that.
It'd be one that'd be the differences between Scott Derrickson's work and Sam Raimi's work. Like, I'm hoping that the tone of the movie is different, that you're able to see the seams between their works, if that makes sense. It should feel like when a new writer and artist take over on a comic series. Like, it's still the same guy, but everything's just a little different. That's what I want to see when a new director comes in.
I think for us, of our generation, I think it's fun because odds are you're going to get a Spider-Man original trilogy feel to this film. And that will be exciting because I've been feeling like I need that. You know, after all these Marvel movies.
I feel like the goal is to have more of an Evil Dead feel, because this new Doctor Strange is supposed to be a horror movie.
I see. Gotcha.
And there were creative differences with Derrickson. That's why he left the project. And that's where they had Raimi come in. And so I'm interested to see if we have some of those horror vibes. Now I really have to see Drag Me to Hell.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a good movie, and it has a one of those shocking endings that I was just remember thinking like, oh shit.
I might have to just watch this bad boy tonight.
Yeah, you should check it out. If anything, you'll enjoy The Goat.
Yeah, these movies, all three of them are on a Film 101 guide. These are some essentials.
Well, what's your favorite of the three?
Evil Dead 2.
Yep.
He really took some creative chances with everything, and he nailed it almost every time.
I would say I think Evil Dead 2 is probably the best film, but I do also feel like they're all very different. If I want to see the cool independent film, I'll watch the first one. If I want to see the Ultimate Evil Dead movie, I'll watch the second one. And if I want to see Bruce Campbell in a studio film that's a lot of fun, I'd watch the third one. So yeah, I don't know, it's hard to rate. It's all based on like, what kind of movie do I want to watch? So you get a little of everything in this franchise.
That's a great summation, and I think that's a great way to wrap it up.
There you go. This
is Justin, and you're
on the road, so I hope this sounds a little decent.
On the Road episode of Aaron and Justin Talk Sequels. We covered the Evil Dead franchise, and next week we are going to jump into Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy. So I'm very excited now for that, and I hope you guys join us.
2 weeks of Raimi, just for you. This is how much we love you, audience.
2 weeks of Raimi. I'm going to start posting some facts about Raimi on Twitter.
Here's a crazy fact. He's married to Lauren Green's daughter. Do you know who Lauren Green is?
No.
He was the dad in Bonanza, and also the original general, or I don't know, whatever, in Battlestar Galactica from the 70s.
That's funny.
There you go. That's just a weird factoid. His father-in-law was a famous actor.
Oh, yeah. I can see him now. Lauren Green. Bonanza was a good show. All right, anyway, thanks for listening.
Thanks, everybody.
Throw us a review if you're on Apple products. Follow us on Twitter. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week.